Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge and welcome to another recommendations video. So this is one that I've made one of these before, but it's been quite a while and I've read quite a few more of these books since then, which of course it's going to be poly romances, which if you don't know what polyamorous means, it basically means more than two people involved in a relationship. And I specifically have, for the most part, this is going to be Ménages, so 3, and there's one that has 4, and then there's one that has like 5, and one that has more than that. Not really, only 2 of these are considered like a reverse harem. But I, in general, don't love that when it's not everybody in love with everyone. And so that is going to be the focus for this. I also only have one book that I'm aware of, maybe 2. We'll get into it, but only one of them that I'm aware of that isn't everybody loving everybody. And again, the other one, it's kind of like some in it. You'll see when we get there, because I don't enjoy Ménages that are MFM. And if you don't know what that means, when you see books recommended, for the most part, if people know what they're doing, and MFM would mean that it's 3 people together, but the men aren't necessarily into each other. They're sharing the woman. Whereas MMF means that the men are bisexual, or more than that, and they are also into each other. I also do have an FFM, and the same thing applies in that. I just don't really enjoy those because for me, I'm only going to dive really into a poly romance if everybody's getting some love from everybody, because it still is a romance for me, and for me that means everyone needs to be deeply in love. And if it's a MFM where they're just like, maybe it's a twins situation or a brother sharing a woman, and I mean there's love on all sides, but there isn't sexual love on all sides, I'm not really into it. So that's enough of an intro, but I just wanted to share that about why there may be some books that you don't expect to show up. And again, there are a couple that have that, and I'll specifically explain like why I still love the book, and we'll go from there. Okay, enough. First, we'll start with the book that has inspired a lot of people to have me recommend these, and it's one that, I mean, I greatly enjoyed it, so I certainly don't have a problem. And of course, that is Give Me More. This was one of my 6-star reads in 2022. I very much enjoyed it. This is book 3 in the Salacious Players Club by Sarah Kate. And this one is actually a married couple, Isabel and Hunter. And Hunter gets it in his mind that he would really like to see his best friend Drake, who is bisexual, with his wife. They work at a kink club. That is what Salacious Players Club is. And he's seen a lot of things over the years now, and he really thinks he'd like to see them together. But Drake and Isabel are kind of like, this would ruin our relationships. Like, what are you doing, man? What are you doing here? Because the thing is, Drake has been secretly in love with his best friend Hunter for years. He also is very good friends with Isabel, and he just doesn't want to rock the boat by any means. But it turns out Hunter has some deeper feelings than he ever expected as well. So I really love this. I thought this was beautiful. This dealt with a lot of themes of like accepting yourself and overcoming like a lot of internalized hate. And I really appreciated what Sarah Kate did with this book. Then I have Harbor by Rebekkah Weatherspoon. I love this entire series by Rebekkah Weatherspoon, the Beards and Bondage series. I wish she wrote more in these. These are all very kinky, all delightful. And this one has a very unique story because we have Vaughn and Chris, and they are partners. They've been together, and they have had a relationship with a woman, and then we have Brooklyn, and she had a fiance that she was going to be marrying very soon, and both her fiance and Vaughn and Chris's woman, their partner, they were found killed together, and it was discovered that they were having an affair. So these two were cheating collectively, like on these three people. And when there is the funeral for them, I believe that's how these two meet Brooklyn. And it's very interesting because they're kind of like into her. They have this weird like connection from the beginning, but it's just like too weird for Brooklyn to take seriously. Not only because these were, in her eyes, like the woman who was cheating with her fiance's partners, but also because it is two men and she's never been in a relationship like that before. This is beautiful. All of the books in this series are very kinky, and how kink is used to help us deal with trauma and deal with things. And there comes a point, I think it's like 10 months to like a year after the death of these two, that she's really struggling, and she decides that she wants to give these men like a try to help her. I mean, that sounds bad, give them a try, but like spend some time with them and see if it helps her kind of process what she's dealing with. So I very much enjoyed this one a lot. Then we have Petra's Bikers by Misty Walker. This is obviously a biker romance. And this one is about, her name becomes Petra, but her name is Cameron when it starts. And she had been kept as a sex slave and was very much mistreated. And at one point during this series, she ends up getting rescued by the Royal Bastards MC. And in that process of being rescued, mine is signed here, it's so cute, she like stays with this club and starts finding healing with them. And so we have Sly and Moto, who they have shared women before, and they actually have started just being with each other as well. And both of them feel a very deep connection with Petra, and they want to make her theirs. But they also are both a little kinky, and she has a lot of sexual trauma. So they, don't want to overwhelm her with two men who both are kinky and want to do things to her. And I really liked the journey of healing in this. I thought it was very sweet. You could potentially read this as a standalone. I think you could do it. But I do enjoy this whole series, but I also, understand if you don't want to read all of them to get to this one. You could just dive into this. Anything pertinent that you need to know, Misty revisits in this. Then we have one of those that fits into kind of like outside of the category I've been talking about, right? So we have The Architect by Nikki Sloan. This was book 3 in her Nashville Neighborhood series, and this one has like a very interesting setup, and it is in the state that we see this series, like we see this book, which is all we have to go off of. It is like an MFM, but there is also some of the sexual control that happens with one of the characters. To me, he is very much attracted to the other man as well. We just don't like fully see them together in any of the scenes in this yet. But it's kind of funny because it's one of those that like I fully believe that they get there eventually. But still, they become a fully committed triad by the end of this. And when we get a peek at them in The Frat Boy later on, I really liked the peek that we get at them to know that they're doing well and they're together. But in this, we have our heroine. I don't remember her name. That's a bummer. I'm sorry about that. And of course, it's written in first person, so I don't see where it is. Oh, Nope, Cassidy's the friend. I'm not sure. Anyway, we have our heroine, and she meets Clay, and Clay is a traveling like architect, and he is kind of a kinky man. She actually meets him when I can't remember if she I know there's a cat involved, and anyway, she ends up like going to be taking care of things in his house while he's gone sometimes. And he is a voyeur, absolutely is. And he also is a very controlling dominant. And so he plays this game with her where he gets this man named Travis to do things to her on his behalf. And the rules are, though, that Clay gets to see everything that's happening, and they're not to speak to each other outside. Like, they're not to speak to each other at all. And the only communication that's done is through Clay making Travis be his hands and his mouth and things like that. He starts to, like, Travis starts to be able to fill some needs that Clay doesn't, because Clay is kind of distant. He is, you know, traveling a lot, and there are just parts of this relationship where, like, she needs someone to be present for her, because of course we could, you know, nobody loves long distance relationships all the time. And so when she ends up running into Travis, like, outside of the norm of their normal scenario, they can't help but be drawn to each other when they are in the same place, you know, because it's like, well, now I've seen you outside of the playroom and I want to see you and be around you. Also, I should note, he's an architect. He also builds a lot of his own sex toys, which you gotta love that. So this one is a unique one, and it isn't one of Nikki Sloane's that everybody gushes about, but I thought it was kind of interesting, and it looked at some kinks that I haven't seen a ton of before. And like, it's not like it was horrible. It was just so kind of different, and I was missing that element of wanting more of the MM stuff to be involved, but I was also, like, satisfied with where they emotionally are at once we reach the end of this. So you'll have to decide for you how you feel. And maybe that one would be a good place to maybe start if you want to see if you want to have an MMF, because maybe not everybody is sure. And so if you read that book and by the end of it you're like, man, I wish these men were fucking each other and not just all the sexual tension, then maybe you know you're ready to graduate to something else, which could be good. And we might as well, we'll do the other one that is an MFM as well. This is Stitches by Sam Mariano. This one actually just recently had a book birthday, and that's why I got a pretty special edition cover of it, and I ordered it signed, so that made me happy. I got a pretty bookmark with it and stuff too. But this one is cool. This one's another husband and wife. And when the husband's friend, he's both of their friends, but when the friend's wife, we discover that she's cheating on him, they invite him to come stay in their home. And then the husband who's married, he offers his friend his wife to comfort him, and she's more into that than she was expecting. And so this ends up becoming that they invite this man into their marriage, and while the two men don't fuck each other, they do share her. They do end up becoming a triad where they are all equally, like, they care and love each other, but the sex dynamics are MFM. But I still really loved this, and this is kind of a lighter novel for Sam Mariano. I mean, it's still not like light, like it's erotic, it's sexy, but it's not as, like, controlling and manipulative of heroes as some of her others, which maybe you have no interest in that. You only want the Sam Marianos that are twisted, and I understand. Then we have a duet that I always love to mention, and this one is one that is, like, I read this before I knew what reverse harems were, and I'm glad that I did, because I've come to, as I shared, not really love those. But this one isn't even a reverse harem to me. This is just a polyquad. Like, this is a polyquad. There's 4 people in this relationship. It just so happens that 1 is a woman and 3 are men, but the men are all bisexual, and I love this. This is kind of college, kind of like crossover. I really need to reread this one, because I did get a beautiful, like, copy of them both together. But this is the books are called Torn Apart and Bound Together, and this is by Webster and Nikki Ash. So I got a copy signed by both of them when I went to Wanderlust, which is really awesome. But yeah, this is about these 4 different people, and one of the heroes actually believes that he's gay, like he's only ever been into men, but he actually starts falling for his best like girlfriend. But he's also into, I think someone is a football player and someone is like an assistant coach, and then there's these two, and like they all end up together by the end, and everybody fucks everybody, and it's great. Yeah, I really need to reread this. Just speaking about it, I really need to reread this. But I really loved this one, and again, like the woman isn't the center of everybody. Like she's just another equal member in this. And if anything, one of the heroes, the one who is gay at the beginning of this, he's more of the center of it because he's kind of the one that kind of connects a lot of the people. So I love this one. Then there is 2 books that I want to recommend by Katee Robert. Katee Robert was my introduction to Ménages. She's the first time that I read it. And she has oodles of them, okay? Like she has copious amounts of them, but I wanted to recommend the 2 that, I mean, they're not like, I don't mean to say this, but like they're not like my favorite ones, but I think they're the ones that don't get recommended the most when we recommend a poly relationship from her. I actually as well have an arc of Cruel Seduction, which is supposed to have a quad in it, and I'm very intrigued to read that because Katee's never written one of those before. But I want to recommend The Sea Witch, which this one is an FFM. The dominant in this relationship is Ursa, the Sea Witch, and she wants to get revenge on Triton, and so, well, or the equivalent of him, and so she goes about trying to seduce Zuriel into her clutches, and she's used Alaric to do that. And so Alaric and Zuriel, they know each other from, they have a past, and then they also know each other from Hades' sex club, the underworld, and Zuriel ends up on the like sex auction that's happening there, and Ursa snatches her up. So then there's some things that get revealed that Alaric has been working with Ursa this whole time. And so then Zuriel and Alaric go from this, well, at least on Zuriel's part, she's very much in love with him, to a hate scenario. But Ursa wants her toys to play nice. She wants her toys to play nice. So she isn't going to let them stay that way. Like, honestly, this is one of the few like dominant women that I absolutely simp over. Like I've read a few that I loved, but the way that Ursa is written, and also the way that Katee Roberts shows the burden that it is to be a dom of multiple submissives who you are caring for them and seeing to their needs, as you should, but doms need care too. Doms have dom drop, and it never gets talked about enough. And I think that in some of them in here, like Ursa is just, she's tired. And I mean, she loves them. I mean, by the end, she loves them and she wants them to get what they need from her. But is she getting enough of what she needs? Is she getting the care and the attention that she needs? And the answer is not always, no. So I thought this was a very powerful one, and I really like it. And I don't think it gets enough love. Partially because it's FFM, people just aren't always into that, and I get it. I'm not one who's always going to run for FF content. It's just not always my thing, but the way that it's done in here really worked for me. Then one of the other Katee Roberts that I chose to share is Wicked Beauty. This was book 3 in the Dark Olympus, and this one is Achilles, Patroclus, and Helen. And I just really loved this one. All 3 of them are in a battle to see who will be the next Ares, because Ares has like died or been removed. I can't remember exactly what. And the way that you fill the position of Ares in the 13 of the Olympus world is you have a competition. And so all the people who want to enter it have entered, and Helen does not want the life that her brother is trying to push on her, because her brother is the new Zeus. I think I'm correct with that. Her brother's the new Zeus, and he is going to use her for a political marriage, and she's like, no, I'm going to have my own power in this town. And so she's competing to be the new Ares. And then we have Achilles, who he's determined to be the new Ares, and Patroclus, who's his longtime, fuck buddy, and, Patroclus wants more than Achilles wants to give. They enter this together, and quickly Helen and them get tangled up together in more ways than one. Then there's also a Company of Fiends now. This is the one I'll share that is kind of a reverse harem, if we'd call it. The woman is the most at the center of this. However, through the book, as we get introduced to our different partners, our different monsters that join this why choose scenario, some of them like fucking each other too, and they all are willing to play together, which I love. And so yeah, this one is part of the like monster fucking series, and in this one we have our heroine who actually works at the Monster Theater, which is this erotic show that people can go see where there's fucking that happens all the time. So she's a sex worker, and there are some of her partners are people who work at this theater, and one of them is a patron who really falls for her, and one of them is a police officer who's looking into some murders who are happening, and they all have secrets, and they all are creatures, and they all have something magical about them. And I did really enjoy this. I liked it even better than the first book in the series. I don't know why. This one just worked for me. I really liked some of the partners so much, and I liked this book a lot. Then I have to mention Losers by Harley Laroux. This one is a why choose as well, with a woman and 4 men. But what makes this one absolutely work for me is that the men already like are together. And so there's actually like 2 couples within the men, but they have shared with each other and they will fuck together and all of these things. And the heroine ends up owing these guys a debt. This story is actually started in The Dare by Harley Laroux, which is a novella about a high school party, and there is some experimentation that happens this night. And now it's a few years later, and this heroine, Jessica, is back in town, and she kind of is getting caught back up in the popular crowd, but she's just very tired of it. She's very tired of the clickiness. She wants that to be done with, but she still ends up in a scenario where the losers have been fucked over, and now she owes them a debt. And they choose to extract that in a sexual way, and she agrees because she's like, you know what? I really liked some of the things that happened to me back in high school with these guys, and using a debt as the reason I have to comply is the perfect reason. Of course, she still has a safe word and nothing is actually forced on her, but there is rape fantasy in this, and dubcon scenario, CNC, lots of kinky things. So much. It's so much fun. I absolutely adore it. And yeah, those are all the recommendations that I have for this video. Let me know some of your favorites. Let me know if you've read some of these. Again, I've made a video about this one before that I think a couple of these are on that one, but I wanted to mix in some new stuff as well. So check out my video up there if you want to see that. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.